Hey guys, welcome back. So, recently Bonnie Ross did a speech at DICE where she essentially said that 343 would be telling more simple stories in the games from now on, and use transmedia, which is essentially books and comics and live action shorts and stuff, to tell deeper stories. Now, as you can imagine, the lore community went into a DEFCON 5 tier meltdown when this was announced, and I'll be honest, I had my reservations too. But now that I've had some time to process this, I really think that it could be beneficial for us deeper lore guys. So if you agree with any of my points on this, then a like goes a very long way, along with a comment too. Let me know if my ideas would work, or if simpler stories are just objectively bad for the story. I know that some people do think that, so if you do, then please let me know why. So, why is this beneficial for us? Surely this is totally against the deeper, more complex stories that we want, right? Well, not entirely. With the main story of the main games becoming more simplified, probably on the same level as Halo 3, it appeals to the mass crowds that were maybe turned off by Halo 4, for example. Now, I disagree that Halo 4 was overly complex, I really do. However, I can totally see how a regular, non-book reading gamer would get turned off by the story. Because when you think about it, there was quite a lot going on at once. We were encountering the Covenant that we thought we defeated for the second time, landing on a mysterious planet of a race that we've never met before, encountering a new faction of enemies that are totally different from anything we've ever fought before, and we also encountered an ancient supervillain who, for some reason, hates humanity, with his motives only very subtly insinuated during his introduction scene. Now, for those like us who pay attention to the fine details, listen to every word of a speech, and process the meaning of it, all of this is really easily explained. But for those who don't pay that level of attention to a story, and maybe just play through it to grasp its most simple details, and then move on, it kind of isn't. Sadly, as much as it triggers me to say this is Halo's main demographic, and it's where most of the Benjamins come from. But this doesn't help us lore fans, this just lets Halo make more money. Where do we play into this? Well, with Halo 4's more complex story came the need to offer some context and thorough explanation for the Didact's motives, the Librarian's motives, and also their race's history. Now, this, of course, couldn't be done in the main narrative because there's way too fucking much to talk about, so it got offloaded onto the terminals. The terminals were used as a vector to explain what you needed to know about these characters and this race and this massive Pokeball. The problem is that that's all they were able to do. They had so much story to tell to those who wanted to get a better than average understanding of the story that they weren't able to do what Halo 3 did with its terminals, which, in my opinion, call me a bungo shill all you want, is exactly what they were intended for. In Halo 3, the terminals were used to continue the Iris marketing campaign, which, if you don't know, was essentially Halo 3's version of Hunt the Truth, but in my opinion it was far more cryptic. The Halo 3 terminals were used to add extra context to the story, not necessary context to thoroughly understand what's going on, but extra, the key word here being extra context. They told the story of the final days of the Forerunner Flood War, something that had quite a few parallels to the story that you're playing through in Halo 3 coincidentally. They also told the story of Mendicant Bias's descent into rampancy, which was a nice little piece of unknown foreshadowing on Bungie's behalf, and subtly implied that Mendicant Bias was the reason that you made it off the ring in one piece, all in a really subtle, cryptic manner. The ability to do this was taken away with Halo 4's terminals because of the story. Like I said before, it needed something extra to thoroughly explain certain things, and give well-needed background information. They were also done in video form, not text form, which really detracted from their mystery, at least for me, because essentially all you saw was all you got, whereas with the Halo 3 terminals, you always got a sense of being able to read between the lines, or interpret a sentence or passage differently to give it an entirely different meaning, things that are almost completely impossible with a simple video. There were little Easter eggs slightly similar to Halo 3's terminals in the campaign, like inspecting the Eye of a War Sphinx, but that was really it. The depth of the story meant that it required extra explanation, and the terminals were used as a vessel to do this. So, I digress. If Halo 6 is going to have a more shallow Halo 3 tier story, where it's super easy to understand the characters, their histories, their motives, and the overarching and underarching plotlines going on, then there's no need for any extra explanation. This frees up the terminals and intel and whatever else 343 chooses to use as Easter eggs to really dive into Halo's deeper lore. One of Halo 5's saving graces for me was the mini plotline being told through the Forerunner intel about Bastion, and this mysterious builder, one of the last alive, attempting to find it. This guy is one of the last surviving Forerunners, and he was active and on the same planet as us while we were on it. To me, that's just so fucking awesome. The fact that there was something else of severe importance happening on Genesis at the same time that we were fighting on it, the idea of something else happening in the background, I just love that idea. I love it when B stories do that. This idea of something greater happening in the background that's insinuated through the most minute and small details is one of the reasons that I fell in love with the Call of Duty Zombies storyline, with all of its crypticness and reading between the lines to find really small but really key pieces of information that have the potential to change everything in a story. And it gave me a massive new appreciation and adoration for the Halo 3 terminals, because they were doing almost exactly the same thing. With a simple story being told, 343 can use the terminals and intel and whatever else to go absolutely crazy with detail, extra lore, secret B-plots, and pretty much anything they want to whatever level of depth they want. They can literally tell a story about something happening parallel to the main narrative in as much detail as possible, and then maybe even tie it very subtly into the main narrative, with absolutely no repercussions whatsoever. Nothing needs explaining. The people who just want a regular, simple to understand story get exactly that. The terminals would be specifically geared towards us deep, heavy lore guys. Now imagine if, hypothetically, and heavy emphasis on the hypothetical, we go to the Ark in Halo 6. The terminals that we find there on the Ark could maybe insinuate that mendicant bias got reactivated due to the events of Halo Wars 2. It could maybe detail him learning about the created uprising and reveal which side he'd take to try and redeem himself. But however, mendicant bias aside, the terminals could maybe be used also to lay subtle hints at future events and outcomes of the story. They could be used to really cryptically tease what's going to happen next, along with the introduction of possible characters, and to also fill us in on what's going on with different species and races behind the scenes, kind of like the Bastion intel on Genesis in Halo 5, and also the mendicant bias terminals in Halo 3. So that's my case as to why I don't think simple stories are some super apocalyptic doomsday mechanism for lore fans. Yeah, it means that the main stories sadly probably won't be on Halo 4's level again, but it does open the door for 343 to go absolutely crazy with terminals and throw so much deep, significant lore into them, something that a main Halo game's narrative could literally never do no matter how complicated it got. So I really think it could be a net positive for us, but that's only if 343 choose to do this, which I really hope they do. If you agree with me, then be sure to share this video around, maybe share it with a friend, or maybe even a 343 employee on Twitter. Literally anything. Next time I should have a really cool video that will return the channel to temporarily a state that it was in maybe a few months ago, when I was actually getting quite a few requests to stop banging on about the same thing over and over again. So it should be very interesting, and something that I'm sure you will all really enjoy. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I really appreciate it, and I'll catch you next time.